I think of myself as an accidental thought leader. I just happened to be in a really hot space at a really growing economic time, and working with women entrepreneurs, one of the few that was really focused on women in venture capital, and so that put me in a spotlight. And it wasn't my intention to go be a thought leader, but I wasn't going to pass it up either.
So, a little bit of advice, or at least a recommendation. When you start your podcast, maybe don't start with your hero for the very first conversation. Maybe don't. Give yourself a runway. Couple guests, 2, 3. But if you start with your very favorite person in that field on the planet, you're going to find yourself, plugging in the wrong chord, rambling, nervous as all get out. This podcast was a dream come true for me. I have followed and admired Denise Brosseau, who's founded the Thought Leadership Lab, for a long time. I have listened to her LinkedIn learning course on thought leadership on repeat. So Denise wrote a book called Are You Ready to Be a Thought Leader? The how-to guide to becoming a go-to expert. It maps the path for any successful executive, professional, civic leader to become a respected thought leader. She even has a 7-step process through it, starting from where you are in your career and how you can set a course for maximum impact. She's worked with companies from PwC to Zoom, PayPal, SAP. She's incredibly qualified to speak to these things, but she's also doing it herself, which makes her stand out in this field. So if you're going to learn thought leadership, doing it alongside someone else who's doing the same things is really important, because otherwise you don't know if they know what it's like to be stuck in the middle of writing a book, or if they've launched their podcast and started with their hero. And there we are. So all that to say, who is this conversation for? Now, Denise and I connected over this idea of, hey, I just heard the funniest thing from a nonprofit leader. Funny just because I was floored. But then I also know that this is a pretty common thought, and I had to get Denise's feedback on it. And that is this. Am I doing my job if I take myself and my thoughts and my ideas and go out as a social good leader and put myself on a platform or put myself in the spotlight? Am I doing something wrong? Someone told that CEO that they were doing wrong. Someone insinuated to them that that was not their job. Your job, if you are a founder, if you are building community, or if you're in charge of anything anywhere, it is all about trust. And Denise really hones in on why trust is such a critical component of thought leadership. And so just even for that reason, you don't want to miss this conversation. But let me just reassure you of this. If you are not holding the torch for these ideas, you're asking someone else to. But if you're leading, that is your job. That is definitely, most assuredly, part of your job. Don't ask anyone else to do it for you. Thought leadership is all about being in service to greater good. If you are interested in impact, if you are interested in trying to make the world a better place, if you're interested in mentorship, to me, thought leadership is all about serving at scale. You'll see me use that hashtag a lot in one of my chosen vehicles for my thought leadership, which is on LinkedIn. So Denise touches on not just social media, but all the different ways that you can use your message to go and make the world a better place and to spark some impact. I have listened to this conversation probably 10 times myself. And believe me, every time I hear it, I'm blown away afresh that Denise agreed to sit down with me. And so I'm so glad to bring this conversation to you today.
Until a year ago, I had a massive fear of public speaking. And I wasn't exactly sure how connected that would be to the guidance I would give. And if being so unfamiliar with the path of being a thought leader and how much you have to communicate, it's critical, right? And so I had this concern, deep down, and I never wanted to acknowledge it for fear that I'd have to address it. But if I don't know how to public speak and I don't really know what it's like to be on stage, I may know all the theory, but if I don't really know, then how can I really help? So we just began COVID, and I discovered this app called Clubhouse. And it's this audio-only discussion, similar to our Twitter Spaces and all these other fun ones. And I had to learn how to speak to people that impressed me, or people that were, a group more than one, and not have a shaking voice, and not forget what I was going to say, and not get too intimidated to where I couldn't just be me. And so even right now, sitting here with you, Denise, I'm really nervous, and I almost forgot what I was going to say. I'm grateful I have a script here in front of me with some points, but I'll just say thank you for sitting down with me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And so before we introduce you, I have a question to ask you, and then I would love for you to introduce yourself, if you would, and tell us a little bit through this question. But the Silicon Valley Business Journal honored you recently among their top 100 women of influence. As a thought leader, do you ever wish you didn't have to be on the platform, or is it a really comfortable space for you?
Well, I think it's not so much that I don't want to be on the platform, but I think especially when I was running my nonprofit and I was earlier in my career, really what I wished was that I was better prepared, that, that I had a stronger message, that I was, crisp, and I had good stories, and, a strategy would have been nice. I didn't have any of those things. And frequently during the many years that I was working in that space, there would be opportunities where someone would stick a microphone in my face, and it was that moment of, okay, here we are again. Am I ready? And it took a while to get more facile. It took a while and the day that I knew I was finally there was we were doing this big event, and I'd been doing a ton of press for a couple of weeks before it happened. And then one morning, 2 days before the big event, this radio show called at 6 a.m. I wake up from a dead sleep, and this guy says, "Hey, we want to interview about this event coming up today." I'm like, "The event is tomorrow." He says, "Well, I got you live on the radio. Would you like to talk?" I'm like, and I literally went into my spiel from a dead sleep. And I still remember that I was really good that day. And I thought maybe this is it, no nerves, because I didn't have any time to have nerves, and I had practiced. And I think both of those things, sometimes you just gotta just keep going over it and see what people respond to. All of that is kind of how you get ready.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. So now already I want to just pause and divert from this idea of the script that we have and just follow up on something that I feel like is so critical for the nonprofit thought leaders that we're going to chat with and chat about today. That is imposter syndrome, or just this place of feeling like I'm not necessarily ready, but I'm just going to maybe fake it till I make it, or just show up anyway as I am. And is that enough?
I think that it's enough if you're also really passionate, which most nonprofit leaders are, right? We are so committed to the cause that we care about. I mean, we've obviously committed to cutting back on a for-profit salary in order to do this work, right? Many of us are, devoting way more hours than we ever did to any for-profit job we ever had, because it's the love of whatever cause we care about. So I think if you mix the passion with that fake it till you make it business, and you keep your eye on that, in service to what? Like for me, it was women entrepreneurs, access to venture capital. How could I change that story? And that is kind of what was kept me going, my sort of battery that kept me going forward. I'm sure you've had them in all the many roles that you've played too.
I have, but my goodness, I think it's only fairly recently that I've just decided that it's okay to own it. It's okay to own the fact that I may never feel ready. You can't keep thinking, well, by my next role or by my next client, by my next this, that, there really won't. It's like either you are now or you're gonna be when you decide to be.
Yeah, or ready enough. Like, is it ready or ready enough? We have that platform, we have that microphone, we have to use it in service to this greater good. And I think that to me, it's ready enough and willing enough and committed enough.
Oh, I love that so much. All right. Well, thank you so much, Denise. So let's go into this idea. Part of it is I love the idea of thinking about, you've seen a number of incredible clients. You've been around thought leaders for the breadth of your career, and they probably just keep getting bigger and cooler, and just the platforms are bigger, and that's incredible. So thinking about how, though, like with my client set, it is very often that they are men, because men will reach out to me and say, yes, I'm ready to be a thought leader. I'm ready to do this thing. And it's worth putting it on my schedule. And there are women also who will, but it is most likely that at the day before they will cancel or reschedule. And it is because they get busy and it's less a priority. And that is so frustrating. But so I would love to, go back to the idea of an example. Can you share with me an example of perhaps a woman in the social good space being a thought leader, and maybe what that journey might have looked like for her?
The first person that comes to mind is this wonderful woman, Trista Harris, who in Minnesota, who has really built a career as a thought leader, but did not start out that way. Started out as a nonprofit leader, really blocking and tackling every day, and one day realized that a lot of the people that she was working with, similar to what we were talking about, nonprofit leaders just need some more guidance. And so she wrote this wonderful book called How to Be a Rock Star Nonprofit Leader, I think it's called. And she that ended up really kind of getting her onto some stages and into some opportunities that she hadn't had before. And she was still blocking and tackling every day to do her regular work. And she then got a call from the Foundation of Foundations in Minnesota saying, hey, we really need your expertise. You really talk about this idea of being a futurist as a nonprofit leader and really thinking more about the future instead of just today. And she kind of, put them off for a while, but she ended up running that organization, and as a result then wrote a second book called Future Good. And really her platform now is, how can we as nonprofit leaders, how can we as social good workers really think about ourselves as committed to the future and guiding our work based on where the world is going instead of just what's right in front of us and on our to-do list. So I think she inspires me. I met her sort of just as she was taking that big job, and she had this much bigger platform, and we started working together around how to really maximize that opportunity. And she had a grant to go out and do some more thought leadership work. So unlike you, I ended up probably 85% of my clients are women, and I really enjoy that journey of how can you get this opportunity, you get this platform, and now how do you maximize it, and how do you get over that fear of prioritizing it?
Oh, that is so cool. So in her case, she wrote a book, and then do you feel like she did that with the eye of, I want to be seen in this space, I have something to say, and so I'm going to put it in this book, and it's really to serve an audience that I'm building? Or, what went first? Like kind of the chicken or the egg thing. Do you make a decision to become, I'm going to be a thought leader in this space, in this nonprofit space, and then you do the activities like write the book and go speaking? Or what do you think it was like for her?
I think many of us, and myself certainly, and I suspect probably her as well, that it is somewhat hand in hand, but also we often will become, I think of myself as an accidental thought leader. I just happen to be in a really hot space at a really growing economic time. And, working with women entrepreneurs, one of the few that was really focused on women in venture capital. And so that put me in a spotlight, and it wasn't my intention to go be a thought leader, but I wasn't going to pass it up either. And I think similarly with her, like for her, it was just seeing all these leaders that she was working with in her day-to-day work that, like her, really didn't have the knowledge of what it took to sort of catapult yourself to that level of not just being the person in the job, but the person who's taking advantage of the role. And I think that is really when we shift, is like realizing that this isn't just the day-to-day, get the paycheck, get the job done, get the to-do list, but it is about, how can I personally make a difference? How can I personally take the knowledge and the experience that I have and tell these stories and build trust around my organization in a way that is certainly going to catapult me and my organization. But I don't think often as nonprofit leaders that we do a lot of thinking about ourselves. I think we really are more committed to change the world. We want to change the world, don't you think?
We do. And I think that the chorus that I keep hearing when folks are a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit real with their hesitation around this idea is, it doesn't feel very humble to be trying to put myself on a platform and put myself in the spotlight. And can I be, what will people think of me? Is this wrong? Is this, so I get it, right? It feels maybe a little antithetical to being the leader of a social good organization trying to make a difference. Usually the focus is on the people we're serving, or the nonprofits we're partnering with, or the nonprofit as a whole. But it's not, I think what they're thinking is it's not supposed to be me trying to write a book and get recognition. We're all in this together. It's me and all my staff. So how do we figure this out? Is there a better paradigm for what we're doing? And I definitely heard what you just shared. It's like she had these great ideas and she knew that they would help people and she had to be the vehicle for them. But I'd love to hear more. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it comes back to that word I use, which is trust, right? When we think about thought leadership, this isn't about self-aggrandizement. This isn't about look at me, look at me. The phrase I use over and over is thought leadership is not just about being known. It's about being known for making a difference. So for me, the idea of thought leadership is really about building trust in ourselves as leaders and in our organizations. And we don't do that by being in the background all the time, right? Those stories of the clients that we're serving need to be told. And yes, we need to be one of the ones telling it. It doesn't mean we don't also bring those that we serve to the forefront, but we have a unique opportunity to showcase those stories. And we have a unique opportunity because most of the clients we're serving are busy with whatever the challenges that they're facing. Whereas we have a broader perspective, we have a broader view, and we have the limelight and the opportunity to use it in service to that greater cause. So trust, if we're thinking it's about building trust in ourselves, building trust in our organization in order so that more people will donate to our cause, more people will care about the cause that we care about, more people will become as volunteers. Certainly all of those things turned out to be true for me. The more we got myself and my board chair and others into the spotlight, the more people donated, the more people got involved, the more people, referred folks to us. So all of it was like a nice flywheel effect, but I think we have to play our role in order to make that happen.
So play our role. Okay, let's think about that for a second. We know how busy a nonprofit leader is. We know that they're, just even as the executive director or CEO, they are wearing 4 hats on a daily basis. Their team is, and I'm trying to see if we can fit this within the idea of no, this is actually your job. It
is absolutely your job. And in fact, it makes all the rest of it easier, right? If your job is also to fundraise, to serve, to make and get engaged with board members, to bring in the funding and the volunteers, then guess what? This is what does that. It isn't the knocking down your to-do list every day. It is getting out and being more visible and building that profile for the organization and sharing the stories and the successes that you've had. One of the ways I look at this is that, we can't reinvent the future if we keep having to reinvent the past all the time. So what do I mean by that? Most of the work of thought leaders in the nonprofit space are people who are documenting and telling the stories of things that are working on the ground. Things, new frameworks, new strategies, new tactics, new theories of change. All of that has to happen in order so that other organizations and other leaders can learn from that and not repeat the things that aren't working, but keep doing more of what does work. So if we think that what we're doing here as leaders is we're locking arms with others in other cities and other communities, even in other countries, who are tackling the same challenge that we are, the more we can share what's working, the faster they can move, the faster we will all move forward with whatever cause it is that matters to us. So I think of this work as, again, not about self-aggrandizement, but about sharing those best practices so that others can learn from it.
Oh, I love that. So if I'm imagining what that looks like in boots on the ground terminology. So it's, if I live here in Dallas. So if I am in Dallas and I am in workforce and I want to try to see some new program that's, maybe an intersectional program between alleviating homelessness and really building up the workforce. If I'm thinking about the city and if I have this pile of money here at the city and I'm trying to decide where should I best invest this set of funds to help build up the workforce. And I know that there's this person leading this nonprofit and they're out in the community and they've got their face out in front and they're building a big network and people recognize them and they trust them and they're going to the chamber and they're going to this organization and they're doing the work, right? To me, that looks like the better investment for what I've got to do. And so if you are that thought leader and you are trying to just decide that you're the nonprofit leader and you're thinking to yourself, maybe it's worth paying the price to get out there in front and to be seen because I can multiply what we're doing here. We will get more money. We will be just more effective. We will be the easier yes from the funding institution.
I love that. Easier yes. Like, isn't that what we all want here? And also realizing that fundamentally people are a little lazy, right? They don't want to dig that hard to figure out who to give the money to. If everybody is talking about, hey, have you heard what Julie's saying? That organization she's running is doing some really important work. Look at her Twitter feed or look at her Instagram or look at her talk that she gave at the chamber last week, right? People are talking about her. People are listening to her vision of the future. They hear those success stories that she's sharing. Guess what? It's an easy yes for that leader with money to write that check because all of that social good, that social trust that you've built around you, that social capital, I guess is the word I'm really looking for, is now going to pay off in that person who wrote the check doesn't have to defend themselves. They don't have to feel bad that maybe they gave the money to them. Everybody's saying, of course, Julie's organization is the one that is doing great work because you are willing to step forward, because you're willing to tell those stories, share those best practices, etc. So it's very much a virtuous circle, and stepping into that journey, while it can be challenging initially to craft your messages, to practice, to get over the fears, whatever they might be that hold you back, and maybe even a board member or somebody who's saying you shouldn't be doing that, right? Being able to speak truth to that power is actually also going to build your respect, but over time it is going to bring, certainly in my experience, one or two naysayers and many, many, many good things are going to come as a result.
It is hard to even describe how many good things come from this journey. It's and for everyone it's going to look very different, but the things that have come to pass for the people who end up walking this path and going, okay, I'll do it. It's too unbelievable. The networks, the relationships, the next opportunities, and you don't know until you start. It's like Christmas, though. You just can't wait to see what's under the tree at this next event that you end up. But we bring up the idea of like, what are the tactics? Is it really just I'm supposed to post on social media? And it's hard to say, well, kind of, yeah. But that's just the vehicle for it. But talk to us, if you would. What are the tactics looking like these days? And what works?
Well, I go back to fundamentals, and fundamentals for me, there's just a few key strategies that I advise all my clients and all leaders in this space to be thinking about. The first one is being an amplifier. Being an amplifier is someone who's bringing attention to the things that matter, whether it's events, whether it's people, whether it's change that's underway. Like amplifying. Social media, of course, is one place to do it. LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. But it could also be in-person events. I mean, where I am, everything is locked out again, so we're not doing a lot of in-person. But back when we could, or in the future when we can, of course, being at conferences, being in online events, all of those are places to amplify. So it's not just about you. It is about amplifying the stories of others and sort of being that curator of the best information and amplifying it. That's just me, strategy one. It's easy. People love it when you tell their story. They get all jazzed and are more likely to do that for you. So it's all kind of a lovely strategy. The second one, I think, is really being a spokesperson. So, doing that crafting of the message, taking the microphone and stepping forward and articulating what matters to you, what the vision is that you're working towards, what I call the what if future. What's the change that you want to bring about? Let's talk about that, and being willing to write or speak or bring forward the stories and the messages. I think that's a second strategy. And the third strategy is about being a convener. someone who brings people to the table and sets the agenda and brings forward sort of shared messaging, shared work together. So that's really, to me, a powerhouse strategy, and one often for people who don't like to be so much in the spotlight, but it can be very effective if you are setting the strategy and if you are setting the table, as it were, by who gets invited and figuring out how do we together further whatever our cause is. So those are the three strategies that just work time and time again.
That is incredible. So one reason to not do this has been, well, I work for an organization. I mean, it's the organization that should be the one carrying the message. But, to me, what comes up is, well, an organization, they may have a Twitter feed, but they're not going to show up at the event and do the speaking. They're not going to sit down at the table with someone and build a relationship. But is there perhaps any time where you as the leader should let the organization really be the one carrying the banner somehow, some way? I don't think so, but I'm interested to know what you think.
Well, I'm just wondering, because organizations are people, right? They're all made up of people. So if it's not you, then who? I ran my organization for 10 years, and my board chair, she didn't like to public speak. So it was never something that she wanted to do, or she would write out the talking points, and 5 minutes before we'd go on stage, she'd hand me her talking points because she just couldn't do it. So she'd get out there maybe and introduce me. So, what is the organization if it's not you or your board chair? So I kind of don't really understand that argument. I think but on social media, I think there is a modality here where the organization's page on social media can be craft the sort of standard messaging, and can reinforce then the different leaders within the stakeholder communities messages. So I think it's powerful, because now we're echoing each other, whether it's our board members, whether it's our donors, whether it's the people we serve. Those messages get repositioned and augmented and amplified on the organization's social media page. Certainly, that makes perfect sense. It's kind of we need that echo chamber to happen, and we need to be doing it as often as possible. But otherwise, you are the organization. I mean, the leader is who we look to. That's whose voice we want to hear from. And that's who needs the trust, right? In order to raise the money, in order to bring in the donors and the volunteers.
Absolutely. So if I'm a funder and I'm thinking about who to fund and thinking again about that easy yes, if I hear enough from that leader, then it definitely reestablishes trust. It really connects me to them. And it's funny, I think our lizard brain, we still equate with seeing someone on video as, ooh, they're on TV. I think that we still connect with people. Like right now, you and I, we're on video here. So I can, even though it's fuzzy because our program is keeping all the bandwidth for itself and I only can see you maybe at about 80%. This conversation is better because I can see your face and I can see when you're smiling, and it's helping me to get to know you and even further connect me. The way that I first found your work was your LinkedIn video course. It is so good. It is such a perfect introduction for people thinking about thought leadership and the how and the why. But it was you were the vehicle for that information. That information would not have been communicated to me the same way if it had not been you bringing that message and getting me comfortable with that idea. And so, yes, to your point, I completely agree. The brand can only do what the brand can do. Just today on LinkedIn, I saw that an organization, what the CEO would do is the organization would post something, and then the CEO would come behind, he would share that post, and then he would add his own commentary on top of it. It was perfect. To me,
that's the way it's supposed to work, right there.
Yes,
that is the way it's supposed to work. And I think what's fun about this also is this idea that people there are a certain community, there's a certain group of people who your voice matters to them because they identify with you for whatever reason. Your background, your interests, the way you approach the problem, the way you speak, whatever it is. And so leaving it to the organization means that they don't have anything that they can really glom onto. And the truth is, we affiliate with those that we feel like we have some commonality with. So I think as leaders, we need to be that honest, truthful person who is showing a bit of kind of the under the commode kimono piece that says, here's what I'm struggling with sometimes. We don't have to be buttoned up and perfect and the right lipstick on every day. It's okay to show that this can be hard work.
Thank you for listening to How to Thought Leadership with Julie Morris. You can find Julie on LinkedIn and most other social media platforms. If you'd like to talk about how to increase your own influence through thought leadership, you can contact Julie through personateam.com.